do the Chiefs have to do to take this great form domestically and turn it into success on a European level?
Well, I think the truth is, it's not that much more. You know, and I think that's the bit that everyone's kind of got to get their head around. And I think everyone kind of continually talks about Exeter being that step away. But actually, a perfect example is last year. You know, we had a perfect start, won at home here against Glasgow, went over to Montpellier and won in a very difficult place to win. Started with 2 out of 2. Did we let ourselves down a little bit against Leinster? Well, potentially yes. But they were probably, in a lot of ways, the team that looked like winning the Champions Cup quite early on in the competition. And when you actually think about how tight those 2 games were, I think yes, in the home game we probably felt we let ourselves down a little bit, but even in that game, you know, the moments that got deemed against us in that game, there was the high tackle against Jack Noel, he was potentially going to score a try. After the game, it's reviewed by the refereeing department and we're told it should have been a yellow card and a penalty try. You know, that's a huge swing in that game. Over in Leinster, we're in the lead, we're playing very well. Keane Healy gets a yellow card, subs into the game, he gets a 4-week ban because it should have been a red card, and we were in the lead. You know, and it's all very old people going, oh, Exeter have been this bit off, but actually we've been very, very close, and actually the level we've been able to put out on the field has been nearly there. And what we're trying to focus on now, and what we're talking about, and the way we want to drive ourselves, is not to be in a scenario where if one or 2 things go against us, we don't qualify. Now we've just got to push ourselves onto the next level. We go, well, if a few things go against us, we can still drive our way through it. Because ultimately, if you look at Leinster in that second game away from home, we had them under a lot of pressure. They were behind on the scoreboard for a lot of time, and they found a way to win with yellow cards as well, and they found their way to win. And I think that's what we've got to add. Yeah. I'm kind of starting to feel a little bit tired with because there's a lot of comments on if Exeter aren't completely dominant by half time, they're a bit off. Yeah. And the reality is it's showing so little credit to the opposition. I mean, a perfect example was here the week before against Worcester. We had actually scored 3 tries by half time, and we'd got ourselves quite dominant in the game. The second half fizzled out a bit, but we still came away with a 5-point win. And then you look what Worcester have done to Bristol this week, and sometimes I think there's so little credit given to the opposition being there and standing there and being up for the fight that, you know, a game isn't going to be perfect. Teams are going to force you into errors, and I think the Bath game was a perfect example. They did really well against our line out and caused us some disruption that broke up some of our patterns of play. It was a very physical game early on, which meant there was going to be some mistakes. And the reality is, if anyone who was there, they'll know it was a pretty dampy evening, and it wasn't a great evening for masses of passes for either team. You know, if someone says there was a fantastic passage of play out there that led to a try, well, they're kidding themselves. Bath's try came from 2 passes and a kick and chase, and our tries came from breakouts or interceptions or close pressure. Well, you know, that's the kind of game it was, and we did very well to overcome what was a dogged Bath side. So I'm a little bit now getting to this scenario where it's great when people say, oh, if we're not just dominating the game by half time, we've not got a bonus point tied up, that we're not vintage or we're not playing that well. Actually, we're actually appreciating that what the important thing here is half time is we lock down and we keep doing what we're doing, and that by playing well and by creating pressure we'll come through things, and that's probably our biggest strength. But it's the strength we've got to be able to show in Europe as well.
But what do you make of Munster's recent form? They put over 60 points on Ulster, a loss to Leinster, 3-3 this season from 6 games. Tell us where you feel their strengths lie. What do you make of them?
I think the hardest thing is that it's such a different competition in a lot of ways to the Premiership, in that there's an element of management of your international players through these opening periods of their competition, which we kind of aren't in a situation to have. Although, you know, we did hold Henry Slade and we did bring Johnny Hill in late, so we have managed our players, but because the way we choose to, not the way that the central contacts kind of work. So there's that element for them, and then obviously there's also the element of how they want to then get themselves prepared and up and running for the Heineken Cup. And so it is a slightly different scenario, and so actually some of the results you've kind of got to take with a pinch of salt, really, unless the front line are out there and their whole aim is to get up to speed and up to intensity for the Heineken Cup. There's only so many challenges you can see. I mean, what we saw last week against Leinster was a very competitive pack of forwards, a game played with great intensity. I think, you know, if you're watching it, you know, you would probably think, well, there wasn't masses of fantastic open running rugby and stuff that we described as, you know, fantastic high quality, but it was a very high intensity game between 2 teams who were desperate to win. And that can often be a really, really good preparation for playing into this competition, because ultimately what Munster will be relying on is an ability to step up into the Heineken Cup, because that's kind of their history over recent years. And what we've got to make sure we do is we challenge that anticipation of theirs to be able to step up, and that they'll be okay. We've got to kind of step up our intensity here at home where we're very good and make sure it's not okay for them.
You talked about them making history. It'd be great if this season you could make some of your own, wouldn't it?
Well, look, every year you should be aiming to do better than you've done the year before. You know, and to start with, we've had our best start in the Premiership. That's great, and that's a great credit to the group of players here and the way they trained in pre-season and their attitude going into games. You know, what we've got to aim to do now is do better in the Heineken Cup. If that's not our aim now, we're getting something wrong. You know, we've got an ambitious group of players, we've got an ambitious club. We'll still go about it the right way, and we'll get after the game, and we'll throw everything into it that we can. And as long as we do that, we'll take whatever on the chin. Because ultimately, as I said, the single most important thing is we come off the field a better team than we went on it. And sometimes the results don't always matter that much. It's about making sure you're moving forward as a side, because ultimately that's what brings you success and failure.